All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer on Fyodor Dostoevsky's White Nights. Today, we're cracking open the pages of a dusty diary to explore this incredibly delicate, almost fragile collision between fantasy and reality set right in the heart of 19th century Petersburg. It's a deeply profound story about loneliness, the downright intoxicating power of our own imaginations, and, well, what happens when the real world finally comes knocking.
So the story opens with our unnamed protagonist reflecting on this perfectly starry night. He says, "It was a wonderful night, such a night as is only possible when we are young, dear reader." And instantly you're just drawn right into his whimsical, yet profoundly melancholic state of mind. You can practically feel the youth, the intense yearning, and this subtle undercurrent of sadness right from that very first sentence.
Now, Dostoevsky specifically defines his protagonist as a dreamer. He describes him as an intermediate sort of creature who settles into an inaccessible corner, growing into it like a snail or a tortoise in its shell. I mean, what an image, right? He's a man literally hiding from daylight in this grimy, green-painted, tobacco-stained room, utterly isolated from reality. He's kind of an animal and a house, both at once.
To put that isolation into perspective, get a load of this number, 8. Despite living in the bustling, packed city of Petersburg for 8 long years, this lonely soul hasn't made a single actual acquaintance, not even one. He just wanders the streets, completely cut off from the vibrant human life happening all around him. He knows the people by sight, for sure, but they definitely do not know him.
So without real friends, what do? Well, he relies on these tragic, imaginative substitutes. He actually believes the city's houses talk to him. He intimately studies the faces of passing strangers without ever speaking a word to them. It's almost like a 19th century parasocial relationship. He constructs these endless romantic fantasies in his head, and get this, he even celebrates the anniversaries of feelings that never actually happened. It's basically the ultimate case of making up fake scenarios before you go to sleep. He's the architect of an entire imaginary universe, mostly because his real one is just way too empty.
But everything changes late one evening. Picture this. He's walking home along a desolate canal embankment, singing to himself, as happy, lonely men often do. When bam, he experiences a sudden, massive collision with reality. His solitary, imaginary world crashes straight into an actual, crying woman named Nastenka. For a guy who spends his time talking to buildings, actually stepping up to speak to a real woman is a monumental shift. And this one tiny interaction, it triggers an instantaneous, absolutely overwhelming burst of affection from the dreamer. He tells her, "In 2 minutes you have made me happy forever. Who knows, perhaps you have reconciled me with myself, solved my doubts." After years of hiding in his shell, he feels as though an absolute miracle has suddenly broken through his agonizing isolation. Just her willingness to listen to him feels like total salvation.
Eventually, they sit down on a bench to exchange their life histories, and this fascinating contrast emerges between them. The dreamer's imprisonment is entirely psychological, right? He's trapped inside his own mind, a slave to shadows and endless fantasies. But Nastenka's confinement is intensely physical. Her blind grandmother literally pinned Nastenka's dress to her own so the young girl couldn't escape or get into mischief.
Yet, as Nastenka starts speaking, she reveals her own deep yearning. She tells him, "I am a simple girl, I have not had much education, I am a dreamer myself." This is absolutely crucial. It shows us that despite her physical restraints, sitting day after day pinned to her grandmother, she shares the dreamer's capacity for a rich, imaginative inner life. In this beautiful moment of realization, we see she isn't just some prop in his fantasy, she's a kindred spirit.
Now, let's look at why she was crying on that embankment in the first place. It's the result of a devastating year of waiting. A year ago, a lodger who lived in their house left for Moscow, but before leaving, he promised to marry her when he got back. During that whole intervening year, Nastenka waited faithfully, keeping their secret totally hidden from her grandmother. But then, just 3 days ago, the lodger returned to Petersburg and ghosted her. No contact whatsoever. This devastating wait sets the perfect stage for our dreamer to step into the role of her protector. Over the next few nights, the dreamer tries to play the selfless messenger. He takes a letter from Nastenka, delivers it to the lodger's friend, and comforts her as she waits. But of course, as he plays this noble role, the illusion of platonic friendship totally shatters. His own deeply suppressed passions ignite, and he inevitably falls desperately in love with her.
Finally, unable to contain the reality of his emotions for even a second longer, he breaks his promise of simple friendship.
He pours out his heart in this raw, tragic confession, saying, "I love you, Nastenka. There it is. Now everything is told. Now you will see whether you can go on talking to me as you did just now." It's this moment of incredible, agonizing vulnerability. He's literally risking destroying the only real human connection he has ever made just to speak his truth.
But then, what follows is this unbelievably fragile, beautiful moment. The lodger still hasn't shown up, so Nastenka decides to just give up on him. She reciprocates the dreamer's feelings, and together, they rapidly build a shared reality. They plan to combine their meager incomes. He's going to move in and rent the top floor of her grandmother's house, and they make a solid promise to build a practical future together. For the very first time in his life, our dreamer is planning a life outside of his own head.
But this raises the ultimate question. As they're walking blissfully through the Petersburg night, hand in hand, was it all just a fleeting delusion? I mean, can a man who has lived his entire life in fantastical dreams truly secure lasting, concrete happiness in the real world?
Well, the answer comes brutally the very next morning. While they were walking, the lodger had suddenly appeared on the street. Following her original heart, Nastenka tore herself from the dreamer and ran straight to the lodger. The next day, she sends the dreamer a letter containing this absolute gut punch of a line: "Forgive me, remember, and love your Nastenka." And just like that, the illusion shatters. The dream is over.
So the very next day marks a painful return to his dingy, solitary reality. The dreamer looks around his room. The walls look patchy. The cobwebs are somehow thicker than ever. He pictures himself 15 years in the future, older, just as solitary, and trapped in the exact same decrepit space with his old maid. That brief, beautiful flash of color and life has completely drained away, leaving him facing a terrifyingly empty future.
Yet remarkably, despite having his heart absolutely shattered into a million pieces, he harbors zero resentment. His final words to her are filled with pure, unbelievable grace. "May your sky be clear. May your sweet smile be bright and untroubled, and may you be blessed for that moment of blissful happiness." He sends only pure, selfless blessings to the woman who gave him his one and only taste of genuine human connection.
Which leaves us with an incredibly poignant, lingering question, perfectly captured in Dostoevsky's closing lines. He asks, "My God, a whole moment of happiness, is that too little for the whole of a man's life?" I really want you to think about that as you go about your day. Is a single, fleeting instance of true connection really worth an entire lifetime of solitary dreaming? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, never stop seeking out those moments of real connection.